Test one, two, test, test. So add. I don't know. Let me know if the audio is working. If anyone's watching, let me know if the audio is working so I can get started. Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome. This was like, okay, it's working. Got it. It's been like 6 minutes. I mean, 30 minutes. This was supposed to be at 7, like 30 minutes ago, but I was at a networking event. I just got back. But I wanted to talk about 9 to 5 because I've met a lot of people that are against that. Um, all right, so if you've watched my channel for a long time now, or however long you've watched, you know that I talk about, finance careers and business and accounting and things like that. And once in a while, I do get comments or people that reach out talking about, why don't you teach people how to start a business, how to be entrepreneurs? And, I try to be as realistic as possible, when it comes to things like this. Not everyone is going to be a successful business owner, right? Look at people that own businesses and people that work for those businesses. There's gonna be more people that work for those businesses than people that own them, right? And the reality is gonna be everyone is gonna be a lot of people are gonna be working for those businesses, right? So I wanted to talk about that. Working the 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I want to talk about. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube and a lot of commercials on YouTube that talk about, hey, you need to escape your 9 to 5. You need to quit your 9 to 5. You need to get rid of your 9 to 5, right? Which is fair because I don't think anyone wants to work until they die, work for somebody else until they die. Uh, but we got to be realistic about these things. People that tell you that, you need to get away from 9 to 5. Obviously, over a long period of time, as you get older, you got to have your investments pay for things. You got to have, maybe if you want to start your own business, be an entrepreneur, then you can do that later on. But as someone that's coming out of college and you are filled with the mentality that, you need to, don't do a 9 to 5. It's a horrible idea. It's this, and that, that's gonna corrupt you. And I'm gonna give you solid examples of some of my friends that I know to this day that are unemployed and entrepreneurs. Uh, but that's what I want to cover today. And 9 to 5 is not a horrible deal. Okay. Yes, you don't want to do that until you die. You want to be able to do your own thing. You want to be able to, provide for yourself and your family without having to, work for somebody else. Yes, that's the goal. If your goal is financial independence, you can do that through a lot of things that don't even require starting a business. You might have to do that, but you don't have to do that. And that's what I'm gonna break down in this video today. And if you guys have any questions, any commentary as I go through this, let me know in the little chat, and I'll cover those as we move through this. So the first thing I wanted to cover is if you are graduating from college, right, and we live in this hustle culture. You need to be hustling. You need to be making money. You got to have multiple streams of income. That's how they say it, right? If you're trying to sell your product, like forex trading, you need multiple streams of income. That's how they sell it to you. So if you ever hear someone talking about, I don't want to do it. I don't know how y'all do a 9 to 5. Why do you want to work a 9 to 5? This and that. Just know that they're trying to sell your product, right? So if you're graduating from college and you are, we live in a culture of this hustle mentality, the multiple streams of income mentality. Nothing wrong with it, but you gotta be realistic about it. So graduating from college, you need to go work a 9 to 5, right? And I'm gonna cover both sides where some people they just go to a 9 to 5. They're meant to be executives, right? They're meant to work for a corporation and then really move up the ladder. Maybe be the CEO one day. That's just their route. You don't have to start a business to be successful. Now, there's other people that want to start a business. These are the people that I want to focus on because these are the people that are like, once I graduate from college, I'm not going to work a 9 to 5 because I want to start my own business, right? And I've seen a lot of these people. Some of these people are my friends right now. Not to drop any names, but there's some of my friends right now. What happens is, let's say you have a passion for art, right? And you want to start a business where you sell art. Right? You have custom art pieces that you sell, that you create, and you sell those online. Now, let's say you graduate from college, right, with your degree, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get into business. This is what I want to do. I don't want to work for anybody else. I want to get into arts. So you start creating the art, and you have your first like pieces of art that you just created. You post them on your Instagram account, your Facebook, your Twitter, and you know who's gonna support you? Your friends, your family. They're gonna support you the first time, right? And you're gonna be like, oh my God, business is booming. This was a good idea. I just made $1,000, right? But then the next time you do it again, you're gonna try the same strategy. They always do this. You posted the same Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Your friends are not gonna support you again because at that time, if the first time they were supporting you because they're your friend, your family, but then once again, now you have to gather customers. That's when reality starts to hit. You're like, huh? It looks like I don't have any. I need to do marketing, and then you're like, I need to learn about marketing. So you go learn, and you're like, damn, I need to get a part-time job so I can afford, a rent or something like that. But I can't really run my business at the same. Do I need to hire someone? Like, how do I modify the operations? So a lot of people that this is just to say that a lot of people that go into business right after college, start their own startup business, they always fail because they don't have the experience, right, to run a business. Because to run a business, you can have an idea and know what you want to sell and do it one time. But over the long run, you need to be able to understand how to run a business in terms of operations, financial reporting, accounting, marketing, sales. These are things you need to understand. So a lot of people that are entrepreneurs that have this mindset that a 9 to 5 is horrible, so I'm gonna go start my business, and they go into business, and the first round of sales is really good, but then the next round is terrible. The one after that is even terrible. It's because you don't understand business. You just went into it without understanding business. So how do you fix this? How do you fix this? And 9 to 5 is going to be your answer. I'll give you a solid example. I loved insurance. I love the back side of insurance. I don't want to do the sales, but I understand that is part of insurance. You have to sell it. So I wanted to do that. I'll say, if I'm going to start a business, I'll go into insurance because that is a cash flow business. It's a business where I'm always going to be paid. Think about this. You have insurance on your car. You have to pay the premium regardless of how you feel because you're gonna lose your insurance. So a lot of people pay their premium every month and on time. Now, how many times do you actually make a claim? It's gonna be like rarely because when you make a claim, your premium goes up, so you're kind of like punished for making that claim. So the insurance business is a cash flow business, right? That is where the people that really make money go. Like Warren Buffett started in insurance. That's what his most of his investments are focused in. So I wanted to do that. So you can easily leave college and be like, hey, I'm gonna go start an insurance business. Let me start by selling it. Let me figure out as I go. But you know what I did? I went to work for an insurance firm that does everything from start to from bottom to top. They do everything. I started off as an analyst and I learned everything about premiums, right? Premiums that people pay and how they budget, how they project the premiums. And I learned about claims. How do claims work? When do you have to pay them? Who gets paid the claims? What happens when someone makes a claim? What happens when a claim is denied? What happens when this happens? Oh, great. Then I went into financial reporting, which is financial accounting, right? In terms of it's like finance and accounting mixed. Okay, how do they actually run the internal books for an insurance company? How do they, how much money is allocated to this? What is the revenue split between this, and that, between the different partnerships? And then yeah, I moved on to management as a supervisor, where I'm actually, you have the knowledge to understand everything else. Now you are in a management level where you talk to like you manage things because you understand how everything works. Now, if I wanted to, right now, I want to start an insurance business. You know what knowledge I have? I know how to do sales, how to get insurance agents. I know how to do the back office stuff, how to process premiums, claims. I know how to process, customer service. I know how to, underwrite as well. I know how to, so I know the whole thing. So this goes to say, if you want to start a business, right, and you know exactly what business you want to start, I use the insurance example. Go work a 9 to 5 in that same industry or same job, right? I want to do insurance. I went to work in insurance for 2 years, and I was able to work in every role in insurance that you get in the back office of insurance, except for sales. But I was able to do that. Now, if I was going to start my own business, I already know how to run the whole business because I understand that. So when you go work a 9 to 5 and it goes to be an entrepreneur, you're putting yourself in a student position where you are taking notes, you're learning from people. Maybe it's a company that's been around for 20 years. They've been doing it for 20 years. They have policies and procedures that work. That's why they've been around for 20 years. They have, a lot of things and a lot of people that are experienced, maybe older than you, that have been doing this for maybe way before you were born. So if you want to start a business, some people are lucky, they just get out of college or they don't even go to college. It just becomes successful. The business is successful as soon as they start it. But that's not everyone. If you want to be realistic, pick a business that you like, that you want to start eventually in the future, and go work a 9 to 5 under a company that's going to allow you to learn, right? I went to a mid-sized company because I know that if I go to a huge corporation, like a big company, now I work in consulting, I would not do that initially if that was my goal. But I went to a mid-sized small company where I was able to, I could move around different positions. You can talk to people personally. You can how it should be for most people. So if you want to start a business, go work a 9 to 5 job and understand every aspect of that business. So a lot of these people that I've seen, I've met a lot of COOs, CEOs throughout my internships and jobs, especially when I work in consulting now. So I meet a lot of these, I work with a bunch of companies, and I meet a lot of CEOs, CFOs. Most of these people wanted to start their own business, but when they started that first job, their goal was like, I'm gonna learn everything that this company does. I want to learn the operations. I want to learn the financial reporting, the accounting. I want to learn the sales. I want to learn this. So you kind of like this gives you like a drive of like wanting to learn everything, right? So you start like, and when you're an employee that's wanting to learn everything, you find yourself in a high level, in a management level so fast, which was my case. I was in a management level in less than 2 years, right, which is unheard of for people, someone just graduated from college. So those people end up in those C-suite position. They're, oh, you are a VP of this now. Like, oh, you're an executive now. Now they're like, oh, do I really need to go start my own company? I'm already running this one now. I'm an executive now. I'm a CFO, CEO. So most people that have that mentality, they end up in exec, like CFO, VP positions or C-suite positions. They end up in those because they have the mentality of they're not there for a paycheck, even though you need the paycheck, but they're there for more than a paycheck. They want to learn as much as they can so that they can start their own business. So the company's like, huh, we should reward this type of person because if we let them leave, there'll be a competition, and businesses don't want that. So they will give you what you're worth. But but yeah, so yeah, a lot of people tend to take over a company. That's all you have. If you ever meet any of these like executives and things like that, just look at how they operate. You can tell like this is someone that was not built to be an employee. Most of the times they don't even know, how to do the technical things. They just came with the mindset that I want to learn everything. So a lot of financial analysts, so if your job is to own a business and finance, you go as a financial analyst, just don't focus on that. Do other things. Like, be interested in operations, be interested in the accounting part of the business, be interested in the sales part. That's what I was asking a lot of questions. So how do you actually sell, insurance products to government contractors? How do you do it? So like, what is the cut? What is the revenue split between this partnership we just had? Okay, great. Then you go to HR, figuring out, hey, so how do benefits actually affect? So when you ask those types of questions, you are going to be able to have, a holistic understanding of the entire business. So if you ever want to branch out and start your own business, you have all the answers compared to someone who just graduated from college, no real life experience. They want to go start their own business. You're going to see that 9 times out of 10, the business are going to fail. They're going to fail. I have seen it so many times with people that, sometimes they even have a great idea, but the execution does not work because you don't have the right knowledge. You don't even have the connections. A lot of people that go start their own businesses, they create connections while they work their 9 to 5, and they have possible clients. They know who to target as clients if it's a similar business. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. I think I'm losing my voice now. I felt like a rant, but it's only because I was at a networking event and I had a lot of freshmen I was talking to. They were asking about what if I started a business, and that's something that I had to talk to them about. I was like, let me get on stream and talk about something like this. But I also answer some questions. I know I had some comments from earlier that I did not get to. All right, so that's pretty much it. Unless somebody else has any questions, I'll do the comments maybe tomorrow. But so do you think you learn more from a back office position compared to a front office? I like to think that you can learn from both, but in my experience, I've learned more from a back office position because you're essentially like the engine of the whole operation, right? So the front office, they get to look good, right? Think of as a financial analyst, right? You are the dude that crunches the numbers, and whenever you go present the data to the front office, people that work in the front end of everything, all you show them is the charts, not the actual numbers you crunched, right? So I've always felt like you learn a lot more from being in the back office because that is the engine of the entire operation. So if you're able to like break things down to a level of someone who's in the back office, then you understand how things work from the core, right? If you're in the front office, all you're seeing is the end result of someone who's in the back office what they worked on. They only show you the end result. That's why as a financial analyst, you crunch the numbers, do pivot tables, this and that. But what you present is gonna be the chart that looks pretty, the chart that makes sense, the chart that you can explain. Like as you can see on this graph, numbers are they're declining because of this and that. You could do that as an analyst, but I feel like you learn a lot more from working in the back office. So I wanted to get into insurance, but I didn't go to the front office. I went to the back office where we're crunching the numbers, looking at the claims, looking at the premiums, budgeting for, future premiums and, projecting possible claims using like, a lot of like formulas and things like that. So I feel like you learned a lot more from, the back office jobs. And those are the jobs that nobody wants really, if you think about it. A lot of people want to be in the front office because that's where the eyes are at. People look at you, you are like the face of the, but you're gonna have your turn. If you understand the back office stuff, you're always going to be someone who understands the process, someone who is able to figure out things before someone that's in the front office. Um, so how long should you work a 9 to 5 then before you start a business? So this is relative. So for me, if I was gonna start an insurance business, I'll probably do it right now because I understand it, but I still have a lot more learning to do. But I would say that as soon as um, you're able to fully understand the whole, if your goal is to start a business, as soon as you're able to understand the whole business operation, how everything works, you go from the actual technical work, right? You go to the sales, you go to the marketing, you go to the financial reporting, you go to it's a bunch of things that make up an entire company. As soon as you understand that, then you're good. And some people won't even have to start. Sometimes your goal might be to start a business, but then based on how you perform, because if you are in a mode of like, hey, I'm gonna learn everything that I can learn so I can start my own company, you're gonna be a star employee. I'm telling you, I was working, I was the first one in the office, last one out the office. Any extra hours, any projects that nobody wanted to work, I'm raising my hand because I'm like, I want to learn about that thing, right? And I'm like, oh, you're getting promoted to this. I'm like, oh, great. And I continue that same thing. A couple months later, you're getting promoted to supervisor, and it's been people that have been working at the company for 5 years, right? And I'm new. I'm less than a year new. Like I'm a year. I've been working there for a year. Now I'm their supervisor, right? It's because of that. So a lot of people that want to start a business and they have that work ethic of wanting to learn everything so they can go replicate it, they usually end up in really, really high positions that they're like, huh, I don't need to start a business. I'm already in the management. I'm going to executive. I pretty much run this business. So you kind of like take over a business. Um, but yeah, that is dependent on, whenever you feel like you're ready. If you have the right knowledge, you know that, you cannot you're not gonna struggle to look for resources and answers and things like that. Then you're good to go. And some people just need their investments to be able to afford them, to be able to pay for their lifestyle, and they don't even have to start be an entrepreneur. Uh, what does the front office in insurance do? So that depends. Front office might be sales in insurance. So it depends on if it's a third party administrator or if it's an actual insurance company that actually creates the products themselves, like Fidelity, like all these insurance companies. But if it's a third party administrator, I think the most front office thing you can have is gonna be sales, right? Because with sales, all you do is to sell things. You sell things, and those sales data, sometimes let's say you sell a product, right? Let's say it's a health insurance. You sell it to a company. We sell your employees can sign up for this. So the numbers you're gonna present to that employee. So how the company's gonna ask, hey, how much are my employees gonna have to pay every month? What is the employee employer split on that? What are the rates and things like that? Those numbers that you use as a sales agent are going to be the numbers that someone in the back office created, right? That they figured out, right? Hey, if we charge this rate and the split is this way, this is going to work to our advantage. This is going to be, so I would say the most front office thing in insurance is going to be the sales agent, right? Because you're basically using the data that the front office generated, and that's what you're selling to the potential client or customer. Um, Next one is, have you experienced conflict at work? Yes, most definitely. And that's gonna happen all the time. And sometimes you are in a position where you're part of the conflict, right? Or you just witness it. And sometimes you are gonna be in a management position where the conflict is presented to you, and it is your job to deal with that. It is your job to satisfy both parties or to resolve that. That's your job. But yeah, I definitely have experienced a lot of not a lot, but like a good amount of conflict when I was working as a supervisor. I don't know if there's anything else. I'll wait a bit here until I end the live stream. Also, if you have any ideas for future live streams, I want to do maybe a reaction tomorrow to some video. I don't know. That always looks fun. The next one is, do insurance salesmen earn more than back office operations? So that's a really interesting question because a lot of insurance people, if you ever went into no, but that's why no one wants to go into insurance sales, right? A lot of people get introduced to finance as insurance sales, and you get paid a commission. That's about it. So it's like a horrible deal, right? You gotta go into like the big insurance where you're selling insurance to a business, not to an individual, right? You want to avoid selling insurance to individual people. You know those scams where they're like, oh, you need to sell this life insurance to your family, your closest. Like I made a video on it. Those jobs are scams like that. But you want to get into the insurance where you're selling it to a whole business. You're pitching it to a business, right? Not to an individual, but to a whole business that has like 100,000 employees, right? That's what you want to do. When you get paid that commission, it's gonna be a lot more than selling it to one person. The commission to get paid when you sell that insurance to one person. So in insurance, I always recommend go to insurance that's selling it to businesses, not individuals, right? In terms of how do they earn more, it depends on how much they sell, right? So they have their base salary. It depends on the job, anyways. So I'm assuming they have a base salary, right? You get paid. This is your base pay. You get paid, let's say, for example, $50,000 a year. But then for everything you sell, you get. I'm just using hypothetical numbers here. You get 25% of the what you sell. So you have your base and your commission. So it's easy to make a lot of money as a sales agent if you're good at selling. If you're horrible, then you're just gonna make your base, right? And maybe get fired because you're not doing your job, which is selling. So that's why I never went into sales, even though there's a potential for making a lot of money. I don't want to have to sell things because I think I'm horrible at that. Um, but yeah, so do they make more money? Is relative. If they're good, at selling, then they're making bank because they have their base salary and the hypothetical 25% commission for every sale. Imagine they sell insurance to a company that has 1 million employees, and they get 25% of that whole deal. Let's see here. What else do we have? Next one is What kind of questions are asked on the Excel test for entry level financial analysts? So I'm not gonna be able to tell you specific questions, but I'll give you ideas. So they ask about I'll tell you a couple of interviews that I've had. They ask if you know how to use pivot tables. That's a really big one. I just made a video on that actually today. If you know how to use pivot tables, do you know how to, and then they'll ask, do you know how to do VLOOKUPs? Those are essentially the core, some of the advanced things. So they're assuming that you already know how to do the basics, right? You know how to, transform data and do things like that. But the complicated things is doing pivot tables, right? Which is rearranging, a big set of data into the data that's needed, or how to do VLOOKUPs, using known data to find the unknown data, in a table or data set. Those are the main two questions that they're gonna ask you really if you're going to be a financial analyst. Unless it's an Excel exam that asks specific questions like, hey, how would you format this pivot table if you're trying to get this type of information in the rows of the pivot table? Then that's more specific. I can't tell you that, but I know that the most common thing is pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, right? They might even add like H lookups and X lookups, but VLOOKUPs and pivot tables. If you understand how to do those, you're good to go. You're gonna be like a god. Like I remember, like when I started my job, I had to train like the other people. Like, how do you know how to do VLOOKUPs? I can't, because they make things a lot easier, and there's always like pivot table. They make pivot tables that make a lot things a lot easier. And do you know any practice tests online to take? On LinkedIn, if you have a LinkedIn account, they do have an Excel exam on there. And I think it's pretty realistic onto if you're gonna take one of those specific Excel exams. It's pretty realistic. And you even get certified on LinkedIn. So when recruiters look at your profile, they're gonna be able to see that, oh, this person is certified in Microsoft Excel. Um, but yeah, and as for specific Microsoft Excel tests for interviews. I don't know any specific ones, but I would just look up, Microsoft Excel interview exam, something like that, and you're gonna find most of the things have to do with like one of the features that are a little complicated, a little hard, and as long as you know like how to do pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, you're good to go. Um, so did you ever consider investment banking or management consulting? So I never considered investment banking because I've had a lot of friends that graduated before me because I was in the investment society when I was in college at UTSA. Go Runners. And some people that graduated before me, they went into investment banking, which were my friends, and I saw how much they were suffering. How terrible it was for them. Um, it was just never something I wanted to go into. So I went into insurance, but went to being a financial analyst. That's a route that I took for an insurance company. But never thought about investment banking. It was a goal because that's what everyone wanted to do. We're in the investment society, right? Everyone wants to go to Wall Street, and that's what they want to do. And most of them left, right? Within a year or 2 years, they're like, okay, this is not the money's good, but this is not. I can't do this anymore, and I never want to do that. Management consulting, yes. I was gonna do that actually before I went into risk management consulting because that's what I do. It's pretty much the same thing as management, because management consulting is more about working with the entire company in order maybe they're restructuring or they are, having new policies and procedures that they want to know how to that's what you do. But I wanted to go into something that was skill specific. That's why I went into risk management consulting for financial institutions. So that's what I do now. But management consulting, it's great, amazing, but it's too general, right? You're not learning like an exec. It's like so many things. I want to go into risk management because it aligned with my skills as a financial analyst. I'm able to look at data, analyze the data, and then recommend a data-driven decision, right? Because based on the data, this is what we should do because the data is indicating this, or so it made more sense for me to go into like a more specific role than management consulting. So I went into financial risk management, which is more specific than management consulting. But management consulting, it's fun, right? You get to it's a lot of travel, and I don't like traveling like that, so I'll stick to risk management. Um, let's see here. Is working a 9 to 5 until retirement a good idea? I mean, it's up to you. Maybe some people like doing that. Some people like having something to do, right? I've seen a lot of people retire, and then they go back to work a year later because they have nothing else to do, right? You can have all the fun you want, but eventually it's gonna get old. So I'm like, this is not funny anymore. And you want to. So for some people, it makes sense to work, until retirement. It makes sense for them to do that. And even after retirement, they get another job that they like. Maybe it might be like a more chill job to be a substitute teacher, or they go be a lifeguard at a pool, something like that. But I feel like a lot of people wants to get to like that retirement age, or when they retire, maybe they're 30. There's nothing else to do after that. You can have all the fun, but the fun gets old. You're like, this is not fun anymore. You do new things. This is not fun anymore. I'm bored. I have nothing else to do. And then it's like, you go back to work eventually. So I think it's if you're gonna, you could do it till retirement, but if you're gonna do it earlier, then you need something to do, whether it's running a business. I don't think that's retirement if you're running a business, but yeah, I think retirement is a myth because humans are meant to like you can't like if you're bored then you're just up to no good that you're making horrible decisions, you're making bad decisions because there's nothing else to do. You're trying to try new things and things like that. So I think even if you look at most retired people, they have a side job or something they do on the side. They just don't sit at home and have fun all the time because fun stops being fun when you do it too much. um does your job have you work beyond 9 to 5 hours or weekends? Yeah, so when you work in consulting, right? I work in consulting, so I'm speaking on that. But you're working for a client, right? Clients might have weird hours of message you at 9 at night. Is this things like that? Like when you're working with clients in a client facing environment, then the client is the boss, right? When the boss says this needs to be done, or else they'll fire you if you're not doing it. So it's never an accurate 9 to 5 hours or 8 hours a day. It could be 10, 12, 11, 12, 13. That's when overtime comes into kicks in, right? But when you work in consulting, I would not expect to work a 9 to 5. And also, I'll give you this advice as well. If you're going into a job and you just hope to work the 8 hours, right? What makes you think that you're gonna be more valuable than the employee that's willing to work 9 hours, the overtime, the 10 hours? You're gonna see that employee be promoted before you. That's happened. That's what I did to other people. I went into a company that had employees that were more relaxed. 8 hours, my first job, 8 hours. Then I was there working 9 hours. I was like, oh, you need somebody to stay an extra 2 hours? I got it. I'll try it. There's a new project training. I'll do it. I'll do it. They're like, oh, thank you. We needed to go home. Like, that's the advantage of being a little younger on the job because you can you don't have responsibilities like you don't have a kid at home, right? You don't have a family at home to go back to and take care of, right? You know what I mean? I was just a single guy with no pets, and I just had my apartment, so like I could stay longer. So if you're gonna work a 9 to 5 and you really want to be successful, you gotta work more than the 8 hours. Do the overtime. That's what's gonna make you stand out than the person that's doing the 8 hours. And you do that for as long as you can, and you're gonna see yourself in high positions, or you're gonna learn a lot more in order to go start your own business, which is and some a lot of people say like I can't imagine doing a 9 to 5. What happens when you start a business? You're doing it 24/7. It's not even you're working almost 24 hours, definitely more than someone that works 9 to 5. And also, it's a risk based, right? And, like this is a concept that a lot of people don't understand, right? If you work a 9 to 5 job, let's say I work at Facebook, for example, and I get paid 2 times a month, and I'm working there, the paycheck is guaranteed. I can always expect a paycheck 2 times a month from Facebook if I work there. On the 15th and on the 30th or the 31st, there's a paycheck for this amount that I'm getting paid. If it doesn't show up, I can sue them. I can file for unemployment, right? So how much risk are you taking? That's little to no risk at all, right? It's like little to no risk at all because it's guaranteed. As long as you work at Facebook 9 to 5, you get paid 2 times a month a certain amount of money, right? So you get the security of when the money is coming in, how much is coming in, and how many times it's coming in. Now, when you switch to being an entrepreneur, right? You own your own business. Is it gonna make money this month? you're not guaranteed anything. So you take a lot more risk, right? So this is risk reward ratio. And 9 to 5 is close to no risk at all, right? Of course, there's a risk of you getting fired. That's why I don't say it's like I'm not saying it's zero risk, but there's some risk, but it is zero compared to starting your own business, right? Because your business cannot, maybe it's not gonna make sales the next month or the next week. Now you don't have any money, you're homeless. But a 9 to 5 is guaranteed you get paid this, and if they don't pay you, you sue them. Even if you get fired or if you lose the job, you file for unemployment, right? So this is less risk than this. So if you want to go start so a 9 to 5 makes sense for a lot of people because there's no risk involved in there. But if you're able to balance a 9 to 5 and do your own side business on this, your business on the side, I mean that's great. But yeah, so it's all about risk reward ratio when it comes to 9 to 5 versus entrepreneurship. So they're like, oh, you're always gonna make 50K or 60K, 70K a year. But as an entrepreneur, you can choose to give yourself a raise. Tomorrow you can make 100K tomorrow and 200K the next day. Yes, because you're taking more risk. But if you want assurance, if you want less risk, go the 9 to 5 route. But if you are more, if you like risk, then you go the entrepreneur route of that. Next one is can risk management be entry level, and would employers be looking for what would employers be looking for your resume? So risk management consulting, yes, you can. I work for one of the big four firms. They usually recruit from college. Right now, we're actually recruiting. I went back to my old college, hence the shirt, my old college. So we go to they recruit from college if you want. So there's two ways to get into consulting, whether it's management, risk management, uh, assurance, tax, things like that. You can get recruited from college, or you have you graduate, you get 2 years of work experience, 1.5 to 2 years of work experience, and you can apply to the big four consulting firms because you actually have real life experience. But a lot of people go straight from college into being consultants. Maybe it's management consultants. They're usually analysts. That's how you start as an analyst. That means you're not making those big decisions. Your job is to support the people that are making the decisions, right? They tell you to crunch the numbers. Tell us the average of this. That's what you crunch. You tell them. They talk to the client. You don't even speak to the client, right? But you're still a consultant, a risk management consultant or a management consultant. But a lot of consultants, they get recruited straight from college. But if you weren't recruited from college, go get some work experience for like maybe 1.5 to 2 years, and then apply to a consulting job, and that's gonna be a lot easier for you. Let's see here. And what would employees look for on your resume? So if you're in college and you want to get recruited straight from college, just do internships, right? If you're a junior or maybe a sophomore, apply to, let's say you want to work at Deloitte or one of the big four firms. Apply for their internship or maybe a summer program, whatever they have. Be involved with them, or work as a financial analyst or something like that. Do internships like that. Just have internships, and a lot of students that get hired from college into Big Four consulting, they interned like a year before or like 2 years before. They've interned sometime in the past, right? So interning for them is a guaranteed, almost guaranteed, not always, but almost I would say 90% of the time you're guaranteed a spot into the full time position. Next one is well, what would be on the so let's say you graduated from college, you didn't get recruited from college, and you just have your resume. So I would, just like if you're going into risk, for me, going into risk management, I had experience as a financial analyst for an insurance firm. So I was basically dealing with the risk when it comes to premium. What happens if the customer doesn't pay their premium? How are we gonna pay their claims, right? So I already had that risk, the risk experience, like had that experience, so that definitely helped. But as long as you have like financial analyst experience, that's gonna help you in risk management, because like risk management is about gathering data, which is pretty much investigating, and then using that data, or critically thinking about the data you gathered in order to come up with solutions, potential solutions. And then the last part is evaluating those solutions in order to come up with a data driven decision, right? The final decision. So if you've ever worked as a financial analyst, you've pretty much done what risk management does. That's the core of it. The only thing you might be missing, which you don't need to know, is the execution part, the decision part. Uh, I only ask because the hellish part of investment banking is the hours, but like you said, you should grind your 9 hours, 9 to 5. Anyway, so why not just IB and get paid so much more? Oh yeah, I mean, if you want to work in IB, I'll say go for it. The money's great in IB. It's so great. Like investment banking, it is great. But a lot of people usually quit within a year or two. And I don't know, like I've spoken to a lot of my friends that have quit like investment banking. The hours are just unrealistic, right? Investment banking is more like, it's not commercial banking. You're working with corporations that are trying to execute deals and things like that. So when they call you at midnight, your manager calls you at midnight. He's like, "Hey, fix this because we got to present this deck tomorrow," or "Hey, this needs to be done. It's gonna take 5 minutes," like, and it takes you 2 hours in the middle of the night. I've seen that happen to some of my friends. So I mean, if you're up to that, I feel like there's like an expiration time of how long you can handle that. That's why back in 2020 or 2021, there was a lot of investment banking analysts just quitting back to back to back to back to back because of horrible conditions. There was a report that came out on how it was terrible conditions, working conditions for them, working like crazy hours, and sometimes even if you break down those hours, right? Let's say you get paid $100,000 a year out of college, right? That's a certain amount of money per hour. I'm not good at math, so I'm not gonna break that down. But certain amount of money. But let's say you get paid that. They say that your schedule is 50 hours a week. You get paid $100,000 a year. Now you're gonna have to work more than that. You will, like if you work in investment banking, you will. Let's say you work 80-hour weeks, right? Which is a thing that actually happens. Now, if you break that down to an hourly amount, you probably end up making minimum wage. Maybe not minimum wage, but it is not worth, like you just like you make a lot of money, but you work way more hours, so it kind of like devaluates your hourly rate, right? Because you're working more hours for the same amount. Unless there's like overtime and things, obviously. But so be careful when you go into investment banking. I think it's a great path to go into. I've met a lot of investment bankers that have exited into consulting because it's more chill, I guess. Excuse me, better hours, better benefits, and just a better environment. What else here? Would you advise having kids after college? Then if you plan to advance in your career? That's a really good question. Yeah, I would say after. I don't know. Maybe not right after, because you want to be able to afford what you know the life that you want for your kids, right? If you're gonna have kids, then you got. I'm not an expert at this. I don't have any kids, but this is just my 2 cents how I function. If I'm gonna have kids, I have a life that I want for them, and if I'm not able to afford it, then maybe I shouldn't be having kids. But yeah, maybe after you get to a level where unless you have like an age, time frame, then yes, that's a different story. But for me, I don't want to be like 60 and kids, but my thing is is I would recommend giving enough resources in order to provide for those kids before you have them. Um, Next one is measuring in finance better than measuring in economics? Yes, I'll say that. Yes, you like I would pick finance over economics any day. Um, I could ask you, what is the last time you've met someone that said I have an economics degree? Maybe it's a minor, but nobody has an economics degree. A lot of people that well, the people that I've seen that have economics degrees, they go work for the government, like the Treasury Department or the FDIC, something like that. And it's been a few people, but when you get a finance degree, it is so diverse. It is so you can use it for anything. You can go work in economics when you have a finance degree, right? Because you took all the economics classes, you understand it. Because you're not gonna be able to understand finance as a whole without understanding things like economics and accounting and statistics. You need to understand those things. That's why they're part of the curriculum. So I would say that unless you are like an economics junkie that like you just love economics, then yes, go and major in economics. But if you're debating between the two, which one is gonna give you more opportunities, or which one is more diverse, which one is more is a tool that you can use for a lot of things, it's gonna be the finance route. So I'd definitely go the finance route because you can use that even if you end up like you want to be an entrepreneur, which is the topic of this whole thing, right? If that's your end goal, finance is going to help you because a lot of businesses fail because they don't understand the finance part of the business, right? They start making a lot of money, they start purchasing a lot more material, and now it's like, oh, the revenues are less than the expenses. Now we have a net loss, right? Your business is not making money, it's losing money. They don't even break even, right? Because they don't understand those concepts that are taught in finance. So so I would say, I mean, I would just say that if you're gonna pick between the two, you can never go wrong with finance because even with finance, if you don't have a job, you want to be an entrepreneur, it's gonna help you. It's gonna put you in front of 90% of small business owners that fail, right? Because you understand the finance part, you understand how to manage your capital, you understand how to get funding, you understand how to use debt to your advantage, to use for your business. You understand how to have owners' equity, how to give out equity, what percentage to give out, interest rates, and things like that. As long as you understand that, like finance helps you with all of that, right? So you can never go wrong with finance. That's why this channel talks about finance really because I feel like a lot of people get introduced to finance when it comes to like um, a lot of people that I've met, their the first job or finance job was, hey, there's a sales job for insurance, and then you go to the job. I think I made a video on this a while ago, and then you go to the job, and they're like, yeah, so we're gonna be selling life insurance, and you need to have four different customers. So recommend that you write a list of 100 people, your family and your friends, 100 of those. You need to go sell them this life insurance product. They're like, oh, that's what finance is about. We hate finance. Oh my God. Finance is terrible. So I started making these videos. It was my junior year in college. I think my first video was one of the first ones was like my whole finance degree in 12 minutes or something like that. Because I wanted to show a different perspective of finance because I feel like a lot of people just avoid it because they think it's just selling life insurance, right? And then I talk about things like being a financial analyst, talk about, consulting, talk about investment banking. It's so many things that you can do in finance. If you watch all my videos or my catalog, you just look at it, you're gonna see that there's so many opportunities. But an economic junkie, yo, there are some junkies for economics, for finance. I've met some finance junkies. All they do is they live and breathe finance. Every time you talk to them, it's something that has to do with finance. Um, or I've seen some accounting junkies or tax junkies, like tax accounting. That's all they talk about. That is all they talk about. You have those. They're not like horrible people. Obviously, they're great people. Really smart people, by the way. Really great people. And this one is a classic Northwestern mutual scam. Yes, exactly. This is what I'm talking about. A lot of people get it's like it's an internship, and you get there, like you gotta sell life insurance to your family members, and it's a whole pyramid scheme. By the time you realize it's a whole pyramid scheme. And I have a video it was supposed to come out today. It was about scam jobs or something like that. How to identify jobs that are scams or something like that. And one of the things like is things like this. Sometimes it might be like, oh, you need to pay for your desk or for your startup. We gotta pay for your licensing, or you gotta pay us. So like they make money off of you, and at the same time, when you sell that product, the person that's at the top of the pyramid, they get all the money. So yeah, that's how a lot of people are introduced to finance, and it's a lot of these companies that were popular a couple years ago, 5, 6 years ago, that were pretty much like those sales positions, more like like I don't know if they're multi-level marketing or pyramid schemes. It's like between those two lines. It's probably multi-level because there's a product that they're actually selling, so it's not a full pyramid scheme. But yeah, they do that a lot in finance. So you got to be careful of those sales jobs in finance. That's why I said if you're going to go into sales, insurance sales, go work for a corporation or company that sells insurance to businesses, not individuals. Because when you go to the individual route, that's when you run into companies like Northwestern Mutual, where they're telling you to go sell life insurance to your parents, or else you get fired the next day. This one is Are you in a major US city for work? Do you take into consideration how expensive a city is when picking a job? Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I live in San Antonio, Texas. Mid, not a small town, but it's like a mid to small town. It's next to some of the major cities like Dallas, Houston, Austin. Uh, like really, Austin is growing, Houston is growing, Dallas is growing. People moving from California to down all the way down to Texas. So they move to Austin, they move to Dallas, they move to Houston. But San Antonio is like really small. It's small, mid-sized. So what I get paid, if I'm gonna get paid here, I would not expect to get paid as much as someone who lives in New York, right? Because if you compare it based on those numbers, you're gonna be like, I get paid significantly less for someone who works the same job. But you look at the cost of living, right? San Antonio is not as expensive as New York, not as expensive as Austin or Dallas or Houston, right? If you talking about like living in the city area, but yeah, so I don't work in a major city. I live in San Antonio. I work in San Antonio. That's what I'm based off of. Sometimes I'll do consulting engagements in different cities, different states, but I'm based in San Antonio. So do you take into how expensive? Yeah, so you always need to be able to take into consideration how expensive a city is, simply because that's gonna allow you to negotiate how much you get paid, right? So if I was gonna get a job that's gonna offer me $100,000 a year, but then the cost of living is really high, you need to negotiate a lot more, because that $100,000 a year, if you compare it to someone who's living in a city that doesn't have those high prices, then it maybe shrinks to $60,000 a year. So you're not really getting paid that much. So if you understand, in the way to figure this out is you go on websites like Glassdoor.com or Indeed. I like Glassdoor because it has accurate numbers. You can type in the position, the city, and you get the salaries that were posted by people that have the same position to live in the same city. So that allows you to understand the range that you can negotiate, right? Your actual range. But yeah, you always need to consider how expensive this. What is the cost of living in this city, right? Is it on the higher end, high like the end spec, the high? Is it on the higher side of the spectrum, or is it on the low end of the spectrum? Once you discover that, you decide that, you figure that out, then you're gonna be able to negotiate accurately, right? You're not gonna be underpaid. It's good to be overpaid than underpaid. Um, but yeah, you definitely need to consider how expensive a city is. But Texas, you gotta love Texas. Like you cannot. It's you can go to Austin if you want things that are expensive. You go to Dallas. You come to San Antonio. There's a lot of small towns where you can live and have that aren't like too small, but you can have a good cost of living, and still make a lot of money. I'm new to Texas and have an internship in Houston next summer. Any tips for living in Texas? Um, Honestly, I've not been to Houston, as surprising as that sounds. I've been to Dallas, I've been in Austin, San Antonio, a bunch of small towns around, but just not to Houston. Never been there. But in Texas, it's really hot. I would tell you to stay cool, drink your water. Yeah, just drink your water. Really, it gets really hot around over here. So yeah, drink your water, and you need a car because it's not Texas is not really uh uh it's not a public transportation friendly spot, especially if you're from up north, like where you have trains and things like that. You have cabs. You can just like wave a hand and be like cab, and then it's right there. You get in it. In Texas, no, it's not gonna happen. It's not. You need a car. Um, so will you get as far as will you get far as an introverted person in business, or do you need to be more extroverted? That's a really good question because I'm an introvert. But how when I started moving up, when I was working in finance as a financial analyst, you need to be more not more extroverted. You need to be able to be extroverted when you need to be, when you have to be, right? Imagine you're an introvert analyst that's capable of breaking down the numbers, but the other part of that is presenting the numbers, right? Presenting the findings to someone who's gonna make that decision. When they trust you more, you're gonna be the one to do that, right? And to do that, you need to be comfortable with like speaking in front of people. Maybe it's a client, maybe it's management, maybe it's your supervisor. You gotta be able to do that. So At first, when I started doing it, when I was having to do that, I would be nervous. I would be in the hallway listening to music before the meeting. I listen to my favorite music. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Chug an energy drink or something like that. Probably didn't help, but over time, I learned that the more that I knew about the subject, the more extroverted I become. So if I know what I'm talking about, I have no problem, converting to being extrovert or explaining that thing without, stuttering or, hesitating or, being afraid to say it, right? So as an analyst, as long as you fully understand what you're talking about, you're gonna get over that fear so quick, right? Because you're passionate about it, right? If you imagine speaking about something that you're passionate about, right? You're passionate about something and you start speaking, you'll be like, it's non-stop. You're like, okay, so this is how it works, and this is where we get this data, this is how we mix it, and this is how we can add it on here. Like, it's like the nervousness goes away. You turn into an extrovert for that 20 minutes you're presenting, and after that you go back to being an introvert. But you do need to be able to have those extrovert features or abilities to talk in front of a group and be comfortable with it, right? Because you need confidence. You don't want to be the analyst that walks in front of the client and be nervous as hell. Like, you're like, looking down. You need to, get your chest up, face forward and chest up, and be able to like present. Okay, this is what we're looking at right now, and if you can see on this graph, the numbers are saying this, and this is what we project, and this is what we can do in order to mitigate this risk and things like that. You need to be able to do that. But I feel like as long as you're passionate about what you're speaking of and you fully understand every detail, because you're gonna have people to ask you questions, right? And another tip I'll give you is, if you are in that position and they ask you a question you don't know, you'd be like, that's a really good question. Let me talk to my manager and I'll circle back with you. That's always a good excuse if you don't know how to answer a question ever again. I'll write this down. You can be like, that's a really good question. Really, really good question. But let me talk to my manager, or let me verify that. You can say like, let me verify that, and we'll circle back. And like, write that down. Nobody's gonna tell you that, but that's all you need. It could be in a meeting. Someone asks you a question you don't know. Like, that's a really good question. Let me verify that with somebody or something like that, and we'll circle back. You never go wrong with that. Um, Next one is are a lot of your consulting projects oil and gas or energy related since you're located in Texas office? So they're actually all over the world, really. I work for a global consulting firm, so it's all over the world. I haven't had the opportunity to work for. I can't really speak about clients. Part of the contract, you can't speak about any specific clients. But I've never worked with clients that are in that industry. But I've worked with. So my risk management consulting job is to we focus on financial services companies, right, that provide financial services. So all the banks, think about all the big banks, all the investment firms, anything that provides financial services. Right now, the big thing is crypto, right? All the the firms that were providing crypto trading and anything related to cryptos and NFTs. So that's kind of like the industry that I'm in. I have not had the opportunity to work with anything that focused on oil and gas in Texas, but clients that projects that I get on are all over the world. Mostly they've been in the U.S. For the most part, in the random states that I'm like, huh, I didn't know this was the actual state. That you get to fly there. If you're lucky, it's remote. Right? They give you remote access to their systems. You don't have to leave your room or your house. You just do it, or the office if you want to go to the office. Um, but yeah, I've never had the opportunity to work in oil and gas. I would love to learn more about oil and gas, like just the industry. I know a lot of people make a lot of money in that industry, and I would love to learn more about it. So next one is that, so basically you can't have social anxiety. Yes. Yeah. I mean, you can have it, but you need to be able to figure out a way to manage it, right? When you need to manage it. And the best way I figured out how the best way that I came up with to manage it that for me was to, to be passionate about what I was speaking about, right? If I'm speaking about how, maybe there are projections for premiums that are coming in next month per client, right? And claims that might come in per client. and getting to the bottom line, I'll be really passionate about it. I'll be like, okay, I love this stuff, and I go up there, anxiety goes away because I'm just so passionate about, I'm like, we're gonna make money this month, guys. It looks like the the net income for this month is gonna be really high because based on this projections, the claims, we're gonna have this many claims and we're estimating to be this much. They can be this max, but that's the high end. But the low end is gonna be this, but we're expecting them to look like this. But yeah, so as long as you are really passionate about that, uh, you get over that social anxiety. Yeah, I'm interning at an oil and gas M&A, mergers and acquisition, and it looks like a really cool industry. Oh, it's a really, really great industry, especially if you're in Texas. It is a really great industry to get into. I think if I think it was my junior year in college. I said I'm gonna go into the oil industry, one way or another. I was gonna go into the oil. If I didn't end up where I'm at right now, that's where I was gonna go. But yeah, it's so many, especially if you're interning, it's so many opportunities. You get to understand, upstream, midstream, like all these things about oil and gas. Like it's so many. It's a whole industry that a lot of people don't realize that it's a whole industry. It's easy to just say, oh, oil and gas, and you think about the people that are doing the physical work, right? Those people that are on the oil rigs and things like that, on the rigs. It's easy to think about that, but when you think about the business part of it, you realize that it is a really, really, really good business that makes a lot of people a lot of money. But yeah, it's been an hour. Damn. But unless you guys have any other questions, I'm probably gonna end this live stream and get some food other than this. All right, so I'll do one last one unless anything else comes in before I finish explaining. What was your entry level job? So my entry level, I've had a bunch of entry level jobs. If you're talking about when I was in college, I worked as I had an accounting job. I was an intern. Um, so I was in accounting, just pure accounting, and I went to become a financial analyst. I was still in college. I was for 6 months, I think, for a summer. Not even 6 months, like a summer. So I went to being a financial analyst. I was working under a VP of finance for a global company. So he was like mentoring me, everything I needed to know, all the projections, things like that. I had that experience, and then I went to become an accounting coordinator for a startup company. So it was pretty much all the accounting stuff. So I was doing payroll stuff. I was doing budgeting. I was doing revenue projections, expense projection, using QuickBooks to record, like, keep track of expenses and things like that. And then that was all in college. And then after college, I went to work as a financial analyst for an insurance company. So I was dealing with like premium insurance. I was dealing with claims. I was dealing with it's basically financial analyst stuff, but just based on insurance data, right? You do with claims and premiums, and the rest was history. How did you get that job? So I got that job because I had a lot of work experience coming out of college. You know how a lot of jobs are like, yep, you need 2 years of experience, and you just graduated from college. You're like, how am I supposed to have 2 years of work experience when I just graduated from college? I've been getting my degree, but I had that because I worked since I've always had an internship or part time job when I was since I was a freshman in college, right? So I went into college and I'm gonna have this job I want to do. So all of those jobs that I just described, it was counted as like work experience, right? So when I got into that job, I was obviously I applied for that job and they called me an hour later and they and they offered me the position and I took it right away, right? Because I just knew they're like, okay, you're probably the best candidate we're gonna get that has actual work experience. But good thing it had nothing to do with my GPA because I had a 2.6 when I graduated. It had nothing to do with They just wanted to know that I actually got that job a month before I graduated. So I was like going to class. That's when like the pandemic started, right? COVID. That's when it started. So it was in 2020. So all classes moved online. But I was like, oh great. So I would still go to work in regular 9 to 5 and take the classes at night online. Um, and then they just wanted proof that I actually graduated whenever I graduated in May of 2020. And yeah, they just sent them my picture of my degree when it came in. They're like, okay, cool, we'll put this on your file. But yeah, they liked the experience that I had, for someone who was 22, 23, something like that. That's how I was able to also move really fast into a management level position in less than 2 years, because I had so much work experience with someone that was my age. Uh, have you ever thought about doing a day in the life? Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, let me do, because right now, I'm doing kind of like a remote thing, so I don't have to go to the office or anything like that. I'll do something like a day in the life of a consultant working from home or something like that. I'll probably do that. I don't know, maybe tomorrow or if I wake up on time. But yeah, I thought about doing that. I think I did one actually. Actually, I'll send you the link here. I did when I worked as a premiums analyst. You guys are gonna be able to see what I was doing. This was my first year working for at that job right after college. Let me see if I can find the video and put it in the chat. So YouTube. Let me see if I can share my screen as well. So I did one. It was a long time ago. I think it was horrible. I don't know, but I'll show you guys how this looks. Open that video. Day in the life. Premiums. Analyst. I can spell that. Oh, there you go. Here. That was a year ago.
As an entrepreneur,
This was a terrible video. Yeah, pretty terrible. All right, so I usually drink a coffee in the morning. As you can see, I got some Colombian coffee here. But today I'm going to be drinking Monster. Something like that. Analyst and a data analyst, and you get to work with premium data. So a really good way to explain this is by using this example. So let's imagine that you work for let's say Walmart, right? And Walmart gives you vision benefits, and Walmart uses let's say Fidelity Insurance to give you vision benefits, right? So every time you get paid, you're gonna pay a premium to Walmart, and Walmart has to pay Fidelity. So Walmart pays maybe most of it and you pay a little bit, and then that money gets paid to Fidelity. So my job as a premium analyst is to work with those big companies like maybe Fidelity or Reliance, or there's a lot of big insurance companies. So I'm kind of like the back office, and my job is to analyze the premiums paid to the company and how much they have to pay. So it is a huge process that requires an entire video, but essentially it's analyzing those payments and also doing a lot of reconciliation, a lot of auditing. So essentially I work with a lot of data, which means I use Microsoft Excel 24/7 as long as I'm working. All right, so that is pretty much it when it comes to the data-driven side. So there's also minor things that I do that include maybe creating and sending invoices. And looking on the financial analyst side of this includes creating reports, things like premium projection reports, and we also have some clients that have requests for certain reports. These are going to be the types of reports that you don't really know until the client tells you exactly what they want, and you go ahead and create that report. And most of the time I find myself using the skills that I've learned from being a financial analyst to create those reports. All right, so I like to start around 8 a.m. and the first thing I do, I go ahead and log into my computer. As you saw, this is my workstation here, and if you've watched any of my YouTube videos, I remember this day I woke up. I think it was like 2 hours before when the time I was working from home this day, so it was 2 hours before when I had to work. So I had to go if you watch the intro of this, I went to buy an energy drink at the gas station because I was really tired waking up that early, and yeah, and I started filming this. And watch a little bit of
videos. I
this.
actually film them using this computer here and the camera that's over there. All right, so the first thing I do once I'm logged in is going to be look at emails, reply to emails, and I'll go ahead and flag some emails. I also love taking notes. You're going to be able to remember it, and also you can also reference your notes without having to click a lot of tabs or open old email. And one of the things I use is going to be these blue light filter glasses. So you can buy these on Amazon. These are going to help you when it comes to straining your eyes. It's going to filter the blue light from the computer, and there you go. You can work for longer hours. All right, so I usually drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee in the morning, but today I just wanted to have some energy drinks because I have a lot of work to do. So that's going to require a lot of help from the monster. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reply to some emails.
So this is always the first thing. When you work as a financial analyst, you're always gonna have people that are like, "Oh, this broke. This happened. What happened here? What does this mean? Can you explain this? Can you fix this? Can you?" That is like, so don't be surprised if you spend 5 hours in the morning just responding to emails and fixing things and doing that. So that's the thing that's usually like that's the first thing that's really annoying, especially if you take some time off and you come back, it's 100 emails of people asking for things. So yeah, responding to emails is a really big part of the job.
So I just finished looking and responding to all my emails and taking notes. And once I'm finished with that, the next thing I like to do is reference my notes from yesterday. So what I like to do is whenever I'm about to leave work, I'll go ahead
And also take a lot of notes. Now, if you are like first time analyst, take a lot of notes. A lot of notes are gonna help you, especially if you're someone like me. I forget easily. Because if you're dealing with so much information, imagine going through 20 emails each morning. This is like an easy day. 20 emails, people asking you different things, right? And you're like, okay, got this, got this, got that, got that, got that, got that. Cool. You finish the emails, and then midday or end of the day, someone comes back. You remember my problem from earlier? I was wondering if you could tweak it to, it's like, what problem? I forgot about that. So I always like taking notes because, to kind of like remind me of like, I would take notes daily that were like dated. This is what I did today. This is what's likely to come back, likely to be asked, likely they might be confused about this. So when they came back, I'm like, oh, I know what you're talking about. Most people don't like to be specific.
and write down some notes as to where I left off. If I was working on a project, I like to leave detailed notes of where exactly I left off and how I can continue the next day or what I need to work on the next day. So I'll look at those notes to just kind of like get the idea of what I have throughout the day. And also based on the notes that I took by looking at the emails, I have a lot of requests from clients, from my managers and supervisors. So those things, I'm going to go ahead and use those to create a to-do list for the day. And that is going to give me guidance as to what I have to do throughout the day.
So what I've always done is always have a to-do list, right? If it's maybe it's your first year on the job, what I used to do is like every morning when I get to work, I put a to-do list. This is what needs to be done. So I go through the emails, right? Sometimes some emails are like, we have a meeting at 2, put that on the to-do list. Or send me this, the deadline is till next week, put that on the to-do list if you want to do it today. So having a to-do list is going to guide your day so much easier. And as I worked over the years, no, I haven't worked for that long. I haven't been in the workforce for me to say years. But after a while, I started doing the to-do list the day before. So let's say I'm leaving work at 7 p.m. I'll do a to-do list for the next day, where I left off, what I need to continue, what I haven't touched for the next day. So the next day when I get to work, I don't have to do the to-do list. I can just look at my to-do list that I, prepared the day before.
Once I finish creating my to-do list, the next thing I'm going to be doing is actually pulling all the files that I need to work on this morning before I have to get into meetings. So after this, I have to get into a couple of meetings. And once those meetings are done, that's when I actually start my day. All right, so I just finished my meeting.
So meetings are going to be a big part of, especially if you're working remote, even in the office as well. But meetings. It's gonna be a lot of meetings, a lot of pointless meetings, a lot of productive meetings. As much as like you have the pointless ones. Like this could have been an email, but you're gonna have those. You can't escape those.
meetings for the morning, and these take a while, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And essentially what these meetings are going to be for, if you need help with anything, that's a great time to ask for help. Or if you want to offer somebody else your help who's maybe falling behind or who just needs an extra hand, it's a great time to do that. And also, if you receive an email from a client which you don't really understand what they're asking for, it's also a great time to bring it up to maybe your supervisor, manager, or director. All right, so once the meeting is over, that's when I actually start working for the day. And I usually start with the hardest thing in the morning, because by the time it gets late in the afternoon, maybe 2, 3, I'm not going to have enough brain power to process those things that require a lot of brain power. So those are the things that I like to finish in the morning. So the first thing I'm going to be working on this morning is essentially just going to be some reconciliations, where I'm looking at, data and things like.
So this was definitely a lot of explanation in this video. I don't know how I can make these better. I don't know. Oh, there's an ad that's coming out.
So I've got my.
Where's your ads on this? But I guess that's how you get paid.
For me, I like to go outside to get some fresh air and then maybe grab some water or a snack.
This was my old apartment. I had such a good view, my old apartment. All right, so right now the time is almost. And also those blue light filter glasses will help you. Things we've done for the day, and if you have any questions. This was such a terrible video. I don't know. It felt terrible, but.
All right, so the time is almost 5 p.m.
But not bad, not too bad of a video. But if you want an idea of what I used to do, I feel like I covered. But this was like my first year, I guess. I don't know, close to my first year. I don't know. But this was pretty much the gist of what I did on my entry level job. And then there's to bring this back. There's another question here. It says what is it like being a black guy in your career field? That's a really good question. I was gonna make a video on this, but I didn't want to get blacklisted on YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I really wanted to make a video on this. Really, maybe I'll clip this part of the video, so I can put it, separately. But ever since I was a freshman in college, right, I started working in these corporate environments. Right, I've always worked in corporate, always interned, part-time jobs in corporate, and it's easy to feel like, oh, you see that's what it is. You one of the only ones that is a black dude, or you probably one of the only ones. Like if you work in finance, really, especially like the finance that I do, you're gonna find yourself being the only one. So you need to learn to be comfortable in those rooms. It doesn't mean that it's bad or it's like it's horrible to be in those rooms. It's fun. I love it. Right? But at the same time, like it's easy to feel like you're alone, or to feel like you can't relate to people. But it's your job to make yourself feel like, you're not alone. It's your job. It's not anyone else's job to cater to you. But especially if you work in finance. But my experience is like, you're always gonna notice that it's only you in the room, right? It's only you, or maybe one other black guy or lady in the room. But when you work in finance, it's gonna feel that way if you're a black guy or girl, woman, lady, black gentleman or black lady. You're gonna feel that you are, because not a lot of people work in, that are black, work in finance, especially high finance. There's not a lot of those in those fields. So when you go to those fields and you're black, then you definitely gonna notice that there's you and there's other people, and it is your job to not, because you can easily become, in a sense, like a victim, I guess, in a sense where you're like, I'm the only one, or you can take advantage of it. And I can say something that's a little more on the controversial side. If you guys are familiar with what do they call it? I forget the actual term, when they have to get, so in order for a company to be fair, they have to promote people of, like, all races, genders, affirmative action, right? that's something that has benefited me in one way or another. I know there's one time in my career where it benefited me, right? Or I had a position only because I was black. Am I gonna complain about it? No, I'm not. Am I still qualified to do it? Yes. But yeah, so there's some perks, even though it could also be a disadvantage. But for me, it's been an advantage. So one thing I would say about being a black guy dude that works in finance and high finance is you're gonna notice that you're the black guy. You're gonna notice that, and it's easy to feel out of place, but it's your job to make sure that you don't feel out of place. Because I can promise you that 90% or 99.9%, I'll say 90 to be fair, of the people that you work with, they want you there. Especially if you know what you're doing, they want you there, right? Like they don't even look at that for the most part. They don't. There might be a few people that look at that if you go work for those old clients that own, those companies that are family owned, they've been owned for generations, and it's old people that run the company. Yeah, they might have a different perspective. You might get a little ignorant comments, but it's up to you at the end of the day to make it how what you want to make out of it. Um, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. I was gonna make a video on that, but I didn't know how to approach that without offending some people, because I'm a huge proponent of, like, you make your reality, right? If you are someone who, you know, that is more on the victim side of things, then yes, reality is gonna suck. If you're someone who is a victim, but you don't behave like one, you don't look at yourself like one, then reality is gonna be really good for you. It's been really great for me. So, yeah, I need to figure out a way to structure the video if I want to make a video like that, where it's like, it's not just one-sided. It doesn't offend some people, and it's like, it's more like a balanced video. But that was a really good question, actually, really good question. Um, would you recommend someone who wants to be a financial analyst to get an accounting job in college? Yes. So accounting is the cornerstone of finance. There's no finance without accounting. In accounting, you learn about the financial statements, the three financial statements, and those financial statements are used in finance, right? So in finance, you might be doing projections. Maybe is it an income statement? Is it expenses? Was it equity? Is it you use the so basic accounting is what builds finance, right? So as long as you understand basic accounting, you're gonna understand finance. So that's why you see a lot of people that are accountants or they're CPAs, they're the CFOs of a company, right? They are in finance positions because in order to be really good at finance, you need to understand accounting, right? You can understand finance, but if you don't understand accounting, you're not gonna be good at finance because imagine in finance, so accounting looks I'll break this down. Accounting looks into the past, right? Accounting is about record keeping. What are the records? When you look at an income statement, it's looking at the income that's already happened. A balance sheet, what we have. You're looking at cash flow statement, the cash that is already, moved through the company. So you're looking at data that you actually have. So it looks into accounting is more based on the data that we have or we've had in the past. Now, finance looks into the future, right? So we use the accounting data in order to project the future, right? Think about using doing projecting revenues or projecting expenses, right? Or projecting, even if you're projecting a company's revenue over the years of profitability, you use accounting data for the past 5, 6, 7, 10 years, and based on that data, you can kind of like predict the future in finance, and even talk about you go to investments, right? Like stock prices, things like that. Those numbers are based in the past data, which is accounting. So accounting creates the data that you use in finance. So if you understand accounting, right? In accounting, you learn how to put together an income statement. You learn about revenues, expenses, net income, net profit, net loss. You learn about so many, like how to put, where do the numbers come from? How do we look at this? What is net income? What is net loss? So you understand how to put those documents together. And then when you go to finance, you need to learn how to use the entire statement. But if you understand how to put it together as well, you're going to be dangerous because there's a lot of people that work in finance that don't really understand accounting. So you see them bother the accounting department talking about, so what does it mean when it's a net loss? Where'd you get the numbers? But if you get that, I'm telling you, you're going to be great. So yes, working in an accounting internship and you want to end up in finance, awesome. It's really great. Like the more accounting experience you have, you just need to be able to understand like basic accounting. If you understand that, you're good to go. In finance, you're good to go. You don't even have to take any finance class. You can be an accounting major through and through and go work in finance and you kill it because you understand the basic fundamentals of what makes finance, which is accounting. Uh, what industry did you do accounting in college? In college, so I did it for the government or the city. It was the city pretty much where I live, and I also did it for a startup company, which was yeah, it was a small startup company like 10 employees, and I was doing all the accounting for them. That was before. That was after I did it for the city. Okay, I'll probably make a day in the life before I get on the project soon, like a day in the life working from home edition. And then when I get on the project, I'll try to film that so you guys can see the travel part of things. You can see things you gotta deal with, the meetings, the back and forth, all of that. How did you land those jobs in college? It wasn't like I wasn't the best student in college. I had a 2 point something GPA throughout college. Uh, and so I wasn't the best student. So I got it because I was persistent. I would just apply for a job. I would apply for entry level positions or part time positions, right? Like if you watch through my channel, you see I talk about go to those data entry positions, the assistant position where you work under finance. Once you get a little bit of experience in that, you're good to go. These are jobs that will hire anyone in high school. But when you are in college, you already had like you have an advantage over someone that might be in high school. So yeah, so it wasn't based on like experience or anything like that when I was in college. It was based on just applying to jobs that I was qualified for. You know, like or you go through the internship programs, right? My accounting job with the city, with the government, was through an internship program that was just taking people that had a listed 2.5 GPA, and I happened to have a 2.7 at the time, I believe. You know, and you had to write an essay, right, to explaining why you need the internship, and I happened to be a good writer, so so that's why I got that. So I would just say, like, really just apply for things that you qualify for. If you're a freshman in college, you just got to college, apply for a data entry position. Those are positions that they give to anyone in high school. Anyone in middle school, if they're old enough to work, they'll give them to those. It's easy jobs. But once you're able to put that on your resume, you start building a resume of actual work experience, right? Because the goal of doing all of this, it's not about the job. It's not, the work might be boring. You might not even look like the work, might be exhausted to go to it. But once you have it, you can add that on your resume. Add it on there. You are now building work experience. By the time I graduated from college, I was able to fill out my entire page resume with actual work experience, not just like what I was doing in college organizations and things like that. It was actual work experience. It was all because of the part-time jobs that I was doing. Did I like all of them? No, but I did that to build a resume. I thought I was able to start a job, getting paid more than the average college student that does not have work experience because I had the equivalent of like a year to 2 years of work experience. I had, all this industry knowledge and different, so yeah, so your goal should be to just build raw work experience in the actual real world, right? The college stuff doesn't matter. You worked at the library in the college, I did that too. That wasn't on my resume. You or a president of a fraternity, doesn't matter. Even though it's helpful, yes, it's helpful. But when it comes to real life world experience, that does not matter. What did you do outside of college? That's how you're gonna build such a strong resume that no recruiter, no employer is gonna deny. They're like, okay, we see it. You got the like we see it on there. We cannot deny this, right? Hey, you're the guy. Um, I'm looking to do that right now. So really, oh yeah, for sure, yeah, do that. Apply to those entry level or part time, and do that. Just get the most real life experience you can get, the real life experience that you can get. That is what's going to benefit you. And when you start doing that, you start to build your resume. Maybe you have a job in the fall, which is maybe part time for 3 months, and then you do another one maybe in the spring, summer. You do another one that's like part time for a couple months. You do that. That's gonna give you so much experience, especially if you know what industry you want to go into, right? If you want to go into insurance, For example, we are talking about this earlier. Apply for positions that are fraud related. So a lot of banks right now are hiring a lot of people that are, that can review applications for credit for this, and that. That's fraud related jobs, and they're not full time jobs. They're part time jobs, mostly remote jobs too. So if you want to go into risk management in terms of insurance and things like that, go into those fraud jobs. Are they going to be fun? Maybe not. Probably not. They're not going to be fun. But that's going to give you the credibility and the real life experience if you do those. Like, you cannot go wrong with that. Um, do you think remote do you think remote data entry is good? Isn't in my town? There isn't any in my town, unfortunately. Yes, it's good as long as it doesn't matter if it's remote or not. As long as you do that, you're good to go. As long as you have that experience, as long as you can put it down, and some employers like to verify that it actually happened. It's easy to lie on a resume, but some employers actually verify that you did what you're claiming that you did, or you worked where you worked. But oh, as long as you have that experience, go for it. Like, I'll say, do it. Go for it. Go on Indeed and do the you can, or Glassdoor. There's options, just remote jobs, data entry. Do that, but it's gotta be in the industry that you want to get into. If it's finance, do that. If you want to get into insurance, do that. Maybe for a bank. Um, but yeah, so if you yeah, it's really just building a resume. Build a resume when you're in college as much as you can. A lot of people like to think about that once they're a junior. They're like, okay, maybe I need to start looking into internships, part-time jobs. It's already too late. You cannot compete with me because I started the freshman year, right? I already have like three part-time jobs that are in the industry that we're both gonna be competing for, right? And I also did it because I knew that I was not gonna be a good student. I always hated school or like exams and things like that. I would like to think I'm pretty smart. I'm a pretty intelligent, semi-intelligent person. But when it comes to exams, I don't like taking exams. So I might understand the concept of what's being taught, but when it comes to the exam, I'm just horrible at taking exams. Um, but yeah, so I knew that I was not gonna compete with my GPA at all. I was not. You might beat me to it, but I was more qualified to look at the resume. That's why when I applied for my first job, right after outside of college, they never got to asking about the GPA because it just showed the work experience. They're like, okay, this is the guy here. The GPA was more like, it was later on like, oh, so what's the GPA again? I was like, oh, it's a 2.6. But okay, but I already hit the job at that point. They're like, bro, are we gonna hire a GPA or experience that we can actually see and prove? They're gonna hire experience more than the GPA most of the time. So just make sure that you get as much work experience as you get. It's got to be relevant work experience as well, right? So it's pointless to go work at McDonald's. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's pointless to do that and apply for financial analyst job and say that this is the work experience that I have, right? It doesn't connect. Like, how does this translate? As long as you're able to say, hey, this translate, like in the interview, this translate to being a financial analyst because I was doing this at McDonald's, but it's got to be able to connect and translate. So I recommend getting experience in industries or jobs that contribute to your end goal or your job, or that translate to your job, or there's skills that you can transfer from the part-time job or internship into the job that you're trying to go into or gonna apply to. Um, well, I hope I don't lose my voice tomorrow because I do have some meetings tomorrow. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in tonight and asking really, really, really productive questions. Yeah, these were some really good questions. I was only gonna be live for like 20 minutes, but like these were really good questions, and it ended up being an hour and 34 minutes. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm gonna do the same thing tomorrow. If you have any other questions, I'll pick a different topic for tomorrow, unless you have your own topic that you want me to cover on a live stream. Um, you can drop it in the chat or put it under as a comment under any of the videos, or send it to me on Instagram. It's in the description below, and I'll be sure to cover that. But yeah, same time tomorrow, and do another live stream, and I'll talk to you guys then. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a good night. That's if where you're at is night, because where I'm